The diner smelled faintly of brewed coffee and fresh pie, a little haven against the restless city outside. The evening rush had thinned, leaving only the hum of conversations and the clinking of dishes. Behind the counter, Maya Johnson wiped her hands on her apron, her curly hair tied back neatly, her warm brown eyes scanning the tables for anyone who might need her. At a corner booth near the window, she noticed something that tugged at her heart. A boy, maybe 10 years old, sat in a wheelchair. His sandy blonde hair fell into his eyes as he tried, unsuccessfully, to lift a spoonful of mashed potatoes to his mouth. His hands trembled, and the spoon clattered against the plate, drawing a few unwanted stares from nearby diners. Across from him sat a man in an impeccably tailored navy suit. His posture screamed power, yet his eyes betrayed a quiet storm. He wasn't looking at the food. He wasn't looking at the boy. He was staring into space, as though lost in a battle no one else could see. Maya took a steadying breath, walked over, and crouched beside the boy. "Hey, champ," she said softly, her smile gentle. "Mind if I give you a hand?" The boy looked at her with hesitation, cheeks flushed with embarrassment. But there was no pity in Maya's eyes, only kindness. She scooped up a spoonful of potatoes, guiding it carefully to his lips. The boy ate, and for the first time that night, he smiled. The man in the suit, Alexander Carter, billionaire and one of the most influential men in the city, watched silently. He had built empires, controlled boardrooms, and moved markets. Yet here, in this small diner, he felt powerless watching someone else succeed in comforting his son where he had failed. As Maya fed Ethan, speaking to him as though they'd been friends forever, Alex's chest tightened. No headlines, no wealth, no power had ever brought his boy this simple joy. For the first time in years, Alexander Carter wondered if perhaps he had just met someone who could change everything. That night, long after the diner's neon lights flickered off and the city sank into uneasy sleep, Alexander Carter sat alone in his penthouse apartment. The skyline stretched before him, a kingdom he had conquered brick by brick. Skyscrapers bore his name, investments multiplied his fortune, and the world whispered his power. But none of it mattered when he looked at the quiet bedroom down the hall. His son, Ethan, lay asleep in his wheelchair, the soft whir of medical equipment filling the silence. His chest rose and fell in rhythm, but even in sleep, his little hands twitched as though fighting unseen battles. Alex poured himself a glass of whiskey, staring into its amber depths. The memory of the waitress, Maya, flashed in his mind. The way she had bent down without hesitation, her voice calm, her hands steady, her eyes kind. She had done something Alex could not. She had made Ethan smile. The guilt gnawed at him. He remembered the day Ethan was born. His wife, Claire, had held the baby with tears of joy, whispering promises of love and safety. But fate had been cruel. Complications left Ethan with lifelong disabilities, and years later, Claire's sudden passing in a car accident had shattered the last pillar of warmth in their home. Alex had buried his grief beneath work. He became colder, harder, building his empire higher as though money could shield him from pain. But the truth was cruel. His billions could buy the best doctors, the most advanced wheelchairs, the finest therapies. Yet they could not buy him the courage to sit down and patiently feed his son a spoonful of potatoes. He ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, disheveled now. The world saw him as unshakable. But inside, he was drowning. He had no idea how to connect with Ethan anymore. For years, he had hired nannies, therapists, and specialists to fill the void. But Ethan's eyes always looked lonely, searching for something Alex didn't know how to give. And then tonight, just one stranger, one waitress with nothing but a smile, had broken through Ethan's walls. Alex clenched the glass tighter. For the first time in a long time, He wasn't thinking about stock markets or mergers. He was thinking about his son, and the woman who had reminded him that love wasn't complicated. It was simple, and he had forgotten how to give it. The next morning, Maya Johnson woke up before sunrise to the buzzing of her alarm clock. Her tiny apartment was dim, the paint on the walls peeling, and the sound of dripping pipes echoed through the silence. She sighed, rubbing the sleep from her eyes before swinging her feet onto the cold floor. Her day always started the same: pack her younger brother's lunch, check that her mother had taken her medication, and head out for her double shift at the diner. Life had never been easy for Maya. Her father had abandoned the family when she was 12, leaving her mother to raise 2 children on a meager income. Her mother's health had since declined, and the medical bills piled up. Maya had put her dreams of becoming a nurse on hold, trading textbooks for trays and scrubs for aprons. Still, she never complained. She worked, she smiled, and she carried the weight of her little family on her back with quiet dignity. As she tied her hair back and slipped into her uniform, she thought of the boy from the night before. Ethan. His shy smile had lingered in her mind long after her shift ended. There was something about him, gentle, hopeful, yet fragile, that reminded her of her younger brother when he was small. She had seen wealthy customers before, but his father was different. That man, Alex, had eyes that looked like they carried the whole world's burdens. He had watched her feed his son without saying a word, as though he was both grateful and ashamed. Maya shook her head. Billionaires and their troubles were not her concern. Her concern was making it through another shift, another stack of bills, another long day of being strong when she felt anything but. At the diner, she greeted regulars with her usual warmth, but deep inside, she was exhausted. She moved between tables with practiced grace, though her back ached and her feet throbbed. Still, kindness came naturally to her. When a customer was short on change, she quietly covered the difference. When an elderly man spilled his coffee, she crouched down to clean it with a smile. But beneath it all, she carried silent worries: how to pay rent this month, whether her brother would get into college, and whether her mother's medication would last until her next paycheck. Maya was used to being invisible. To most people, she was just a waitress. But she never realized that the simple kindness she gave freely had already caught the eye of someone powerful, someone who would soon change her life forever. 2 days later, the bell above the diner's door jingled, and Maya looked up from refilling a coffee cup. Her heart gave a small jolt of surprise. It was them. Ethan, wheeled carefully inside by his father, looked brighter than she remembered. His eyes lit up when he spotted her, and he waved shyly. Maya's lips curved into a genuine smile as she walked over. "Well, look who's back," she said warmly. "Hey, champ. Did you miss my mashed potatoes?" Ethan laughed softly, nodding. The sound was small but pure, and it drew curious glances from other customers. Maya crouched to his level again, making him feel seen rather than stared at. "Welcome back," she added, glancing briefly at Alex Carter. He looked almost out of place in the modest diner, his suit tailored, his wristwatch gleaming, his posture commanding. Yet there was a subtle shift about him. This time, his gaze wasn't distant. It was focused on her. "I thought Ethan might enjoy coming back here," Alex said, his voice smoother than she expected, with a quiet weight to it. Maya nodded, sensing something unspoken. She took their order and, when the food came, Ethan once again struggled with his spoon. But before she could move, Alex leaned forward. "Here, buddy," he said gently, taking the spoon. His hand trembled slightly as he tried to feed his son. Ethan's eyes widened in surprise, then softened. He accepted the bite, and his lips curled into a small smile. Maya stood back, her chest tightening. She had never seen a man of Alex's stature look so vulnerable. For a moment, he wasn't a billionaire. He was just a father trying to connect with his son. Still, Ethan kept glancing at Maya, silently inviting her to join. She crouched again, her hand brushing lightly against Alex's as she steadied the spoon. Their eyes met briefly, hers warm, his guarded. For the next 20 minutes, the three of them shared laughter, small jokes, and spoonfuls of mashed potatoes. To anyone watching, they might have looked like a family. When the meal ended, Ethan tugged at his father's sleeve and whispered, "Dad, can we come back here again?" "With her." Alex froze, his throat tightening. It had been years since his son had asked for anything so eagerly. His gaze flicked to Maya, who was clearing the table, her smile easy and unforced. "Yeah, buddy," he said softly. "We'll come back." And in that moment, the walls Alexander Carter had built around his heart began to crack. The diner became their quiet meeting place over the next 2 weeks. Every few days, Alex and Ethan would show up, and Maya would always be there with her warm smile, her steady hands, and her patient way of making Ethan feel like the most important person in the room. To Maya, it was natural, treating Ethan as a boy first and not just his disability. But to Alex, it was extraordinary. He watched closely, noticing how his son's laughter grew freer, how his eyes sparkled more, and how his once shy demeanor seemed to open in Maya's presence. One evening, after Ethan had fallen asleep at the table, his head resting on his folded arms, Alex surprised Maya by speaking. His voice was lower than usual, carrying a weight of memories. "You're good with him," he said quietly. Maya looked up, slightly startled. "He's a wonderful kid," she replied honestly. "He just needs people who see him, not just the chair." Alex's jaw tightened. He looked at his son, then back at Maya. Something in her words had struck deep. "My wife used to say the same thing," he admitted after a pause. His eyes softened as if the name itself carried both love and grief. Claire. She was the light in his life. In mine too. After the accident, I tried to be both father and mother, but, he exhaled heavily, shaking his head, I failed him more times than I can count. Maya's expression softened. She hadn't expected such vulnerability from a man like him. To the world, he was Alexander Carter, the billionaire, the empire builder. But sitting across from her, he was simply a widower struggling to raise his son. "I don't think you failed him," she said gently. "You're here. That counts for more than you think." Alex looked at her, studying her face as though searching for hidden judgment, but found none. Only sincerity. For the first time in years, he spoke about Claire, the laughter she brought into their home, the promises they made, the dreams that had been cut short. Maya listened quietly, her eyes never leaving his, giving him the one thing money could never buy, someone willing to understand. When Ethan stirred awake, blinking up at both of them, he noticed something he hadn't seen before. His father was smiling, not the practiced smile for cameras, but a real one. And Maya, though she didn't realize it, was slowly becoming the bridge between a grieving father and a lonely child. The diner buzzed with the evening rush. Maya moved swiftly between tables, balancing trays, refilling glasses, and exchanging small jokes with the regulars. Her smile never faltered, but inside she was exhausted. Rent was overdue, her mother's medication had doubled in cost, and her brother had just told her he might have to drop out of college unless they found extra money. Still she worked, because that's what she knew best, keeping going even when the world pressed hard against her. That night, Alex and Ethan arrived as usual. Ethan grinned at the sight of Maya, waving his small hand excitedly. She walked over, crouching as always. "Hey, champ," she said warmly. "You ready for your favorite?" Mashed potatoes, Ethan declared proudly. Maya laughed, jotting down the order. But as she turned to leave, her manager, a gruff man with a sour expression, pulled her aside. "Johnson," he barked, "you're spending too much time with that rich kid and his dad. Other customers are complaining you're ignoring them. Move faster, or you'll be looking for another job." Maya's cheeks burned. She wanted to argue. She had been doing her work just fine, but she bit her tongue. She couldn't afford to lose this job, not now. Alex had overheard. His eyes narrowed, and for the first time in a long time, anger burned in his chest, not at Maya, but at the unfairness of it. He watched as she returned to her duties with forced composure, her smile thinner now, her shoulders heavier. After dinner, when Maya brought the check, Alex slipped his card into the folder. When she returned, she gasped quietly at what she saw. A tip, large enough to cover a month's rent. "Sir, this is too much," she whispered, her voice trembling. Alex leaned forward slightly, his gaze steady. "It's not nearly enough," he said. "Consider it a thank you for seeing my son, for treating him the way the world doesn't." Maya shook her head, tears threatening her eyes. "I wasn't trying to be paid for kindness. That's just who I am." Alex studied her for a moment, then gave the faintest smile. "And that," he said softly, "is exactly why it matters." She tucked the money back into the folder, refusing to pocket it. But later that night, as she walked home under the flickering streetlights, she couldn't stop thinking about his words. For once, someone had noticed her heart, and it terrified her. A week later, Maya finished her shift and was gathering her things when she noticed a sleek black car parked outside the diner. It wasn't the kind of car you normally saw in this neighborhood. Luxury, spotless, with tinted windows that reflected the city lights. The driver stepped out, dressed in a dark suit. "Miss Johnson?" he asked politely. Maya froze. Yes. "Mr. Carter requests your company. If you'd be so kind." He gestured to the car. Her heart raced. She hesitated, but something in her gut told her it wasn't a threat. Cautiously, she stepped inside. The ride was silent, the city blurring past in streaks of light. When the car finally stopped, Maya's breath caught in her throat. Towering above her was one of Manhattan's most prestigious buildings. Its name glowed in gold letters. Carter Tower. Inside, the lobby was marble and glass, buzzing with staff who moved with quiet precision. Everyone seemed to recognize her arrival. She felt out of place in her diner uniform, clutching her worn bag against her chest. Then she saw him. Alexander Carter, dressed impeccably as always, but this time his expression was softer. Beside him sat Ethan, beaming the moment he spotted her. "Maya!" Ethan called. "You came." She hurried to his side, crouching as usual. "Of course I did, champ. But what's going on?" Alex cleared his throat. "I owe you an apology. And perhaps an explanation." He led her upstairs to his private office. From the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city stretched endlessly below them. Maya had never seen such a view. It felt like standing at the top of the world. Alex turned to her. "You've given my son something I couldn't hope. Joy. Connection. I brought you here because I want you to understand who I am, not just as Ethan's father, but as a man who owes you more than words." Maya's eyes widened as realization sank in. Billionaire. Empire builder. One of the most powerful men in New York. And yet, here he was, speaking to her not with arrogance, but with gratitude. "I don't care about your money, Mr. Carter," she said firmly. "All I did was treat your son the way he deserves." Alex studied her, something unspoken flickering in his eyes. "Exactly," he said softly. "That's why you're different." Ethan giggled from his chair, glancing between them with innocent curiosity. To him, It didn't matter who was rich or poor. All that mattered was that, for the first time, he felt like he belonged to something bigger than loneliness. And in that glittering tower high above the city, Maya realized her world and theirs were beginning to collide. The weeks that followed felt like stepping into a life Maya had never imagined. Alex and Ethan continued to visit the diner, but soon it was more than that. Sometimes Alex would invite her to join them for walks in the park. Other times, Ethan begged her to read him bedtime stories, her voice soothing him into peaceful sleep. The walls around Alex's heart began to crumble. He found himself watching Maya more than he expected, the way she laughed easily with Ethan, the way she carried her own struggles with quiet strength. She reminded him of Claire in spirit, but she was wholly herself, resilient, compassionate, and unafraid to speak truth. One evening, Alex invited Maya and her family to his penthouse. Nervous, she almost refused, but Ethan's pleading eyes convinced her otherwise. Her younger brother was in awe of the towering skyscraper, while her mother, frail but smiling, whispered, "You deserve to be around people who see your worth, Maya." Dinner was simple but filled with laughter. Ethan shone brighter than ever, and Alex watched in quiet wonder. It had been years since his home echoed with such warmth. Later, as Maya helped Ethan with his bedtime routine, Alex lingered at the doorway, his throat tight. Ethan looked up at him and whispered, "Dad, I like her. She makes me happy. You smile more now, too." When Maya stepped out, Alex finally spoke. His voice was rough, stripped of the usual confidence. "Maya, you've changed us," he admitted. "You've changed me. I thought money could fix everything, but it couldn't fix the loneliness, or the distance between me and my son. You gave us something priceless. A family feeling." Her eyes filled, though she tried to hide it. "I didn't do anything extraordinary," she said softly. "I just cared." "And that," Alex replied, stepping closer, "is extraordinary." For the first time in years, Alex reached out, not as a billionaire, not as a man desperate to fix what was broken, but as someone ready to open his heart again. Maya, though hesitant, didn't pull away. Outside the window, the city pulsed with life, but in that room, it felt like the world had stilled. From then on, Maya was no longer just a waitress in a small diner. She became a lifeline, for Ethan, who had found a friend who believed in him, and for Alex, who had rediscovered the simple, healing power of love. And though their lives had come from different worlds, they discovered something timeless. Kindness could bridge any distance. Maya hadn't just changed their days. She had changed their lives forever.